what a moment, what a time, and this kaupapa just keeps giving and giving, and here we are and planting seeds, and this kaupapa bridged the gap, and man, it was just such a this episode that we're about to have, it just seems very fitting that we've brought our kitchen conversation into this setting, brother. So welcome, Brother Tim, to the show, bro.
Thank you for having me.
Wow, what a buzz, bro. Like, this is your building, bro. You know, like, we're actually in your building and in your company, and to be able to create the space for us to create what this kaupapa is, you know, it just seems as though you just make it home for everyone, bro. So just want to say thank you first and foremost for that, brother.
No, you're welcome. It's actually amazing looking at all of it. Like, this is an engineering office, usually. So to come in here and it's full production and everything looks amazing, it's that's pretty cool.
Bro, it's amazing, bro. Like, when we first came in here for the catch up, there were, like, you know, office tables and, you know, computers and things of that nature, and so the team have just come in and just given it a bit of a revamp, but have just made it into the set that it is now. But, you know, brother, for those who might not be aware of who you are, my bro, like, ko ai koe.
Tim Wiringi is my name. I'm Rotorua born and raised. Love this as my home. Got a couple of engineering businesses, one here in New Zealand, one in Australia. Expanding, doing a lot of, really trying to create more, I suppose, passive incomes, and at the moment really working on what feels good, you know, and, we've got these other projects that we're doing with NFTs and drinks, and there's all sorts, property. Obviously I own this building as well. We're looking at purchasing the building right behind us, and going hard. But it's cool. It's
cool to sort of hear the different hats that you do wear, bro, and it just seems as though there's something in you that just enjoys, because a lot of entrepreneurs or a lot of people in business, they see it almost as a game, right? There's sort of this playful approach to the moving pieces, and you see opportunity and you're looking at, okay, now what do I have that could potentially make this into something? Is that something that resonates with you, bro?
100%. There's a saying that when you talk about opportunity, there's a saying, opportunities of a lifetime must be seized in the lifetime of the opportunity. And it's something that I'm always looking for opportunity, because that's what's going to promote growth and all of that kind of thing, and it has to be seized in that lifetime. Sure. So there's a lot of
opportunity, because they're passing and fleeting,
Yeah, they do, and I don't know. It's a lot of it's ramped up in the last couple of years. I've always been I suppose a little bit of a risk taker, and not afraid to give something a go. But in the last couple of years, it is like full on. Like, my wife gets scared because it's a lot. Like, and I've just got this I've got this idea of what's the worst that can happen. So I just go in.
And you've gone through that process of your own risk assessment, and what is the worst that could happen? Is that this could fail, I might look like a bit of a dumbass, or you know, might not work out, or we might be a bit left out. But when you go through that process and you understand the risk, you're still left with something though, and it's like, whether it's the hunger, whether it's like you just know you're going to succeed, or there's going to be something that's going to come out of it.
Yeah, I think sometimes, well, actually all the time with whatever I go into, whatever we're going to do, it's quite weird, because I can see it. Like, I can actually visualize what I'm trying to achieve, to the point where it's like, it's already happened in my head. Like, I can physically, I've already been there. And an interesting thing for that is this building here. So before I started my company, which my engineering company in 2018, I knew one day I wanted to have our own commercial building. Like, I've always wanted to, when we start our business, actually have our own facilities or have our own places and all that kind of stuff. And this building here, I saw, and in my mind I visualized actually being here. So when I was thinking all of those things, I was actually thinking of this exact building.
Wow.
And it was real funny because my old boss's friend used to own this building, and I always thought like that'd be quite a cool building, and for some reason every vision that I had of being in our building was in this actual building, this exact building. And I remember having this, I started working out of my garage, and I was building switchboards and doing all of this stuff out at home, and I grew out of that in about 3 months or something. And I remember talking to my accountant and saying, you know, I need to get a building. I need to get a workshop to work out of. And he said, do you want to buy or are you wanting a lease? And I was like, well, I've been in business for 3 months. I feel like to buy eventually is what I want. But right now, I'm like, I didn't feel that I was like there yet.
Right.
And he goes, what's your house worth? And I was like, oh, about this much. And he's just one of those old school, man. He just like, scribble, scribble, scribble. How much have you got left on it? Da, 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 da. And he goes, just buy one. And I was like, oh, all right. And like, no lies, started looking for this building, and he said, you know, you'd probably be able to borrow up to about this much money. And started looking, and then funnily enough, this was on the market and had been on the market for a while. So I went back to him and talked about it and all of that. And honestly, we had this conversation, and within 30 minutes, we had a conditional offer for this building. It was like real weird. And then literally, I think it was like within a month later, I owned this building. It was the weirdest. It was like surreal, like how quick it all happened. And at that point, because I started to understand that things can be done, and my visions, I suppose, were just starting to happen, just things started to like ramp up. You know, we started purchasing more bigger ticket items and bigger, like, just because I was like, we need that, and I could see it, and I could see multiple instances of when it would be valuable. But yeah, there was that vision for everything. Same with what we're doing with our NFT projects, and like I can see some of the stuff hasn't happened yet, but I can see it, like I can visualize it, I can feel how that's going to be.
It's tangible to you, eh?
To me, it's actually happening, and all I'm waiting for is that time to come that it's going to happen.
There's just like there's this relentless sort of belief and faith in the unseen almost, you know, like no one else can see what you're seeing, but because it's so clear and it's triggering something in you, like, oh bro, there's something here. And if you hold steadfast to that, you just understand that, because you can see it in your journey already. You know, things have happened that have given you the confidence that what it is that you are doing and the processes that you have taken has yielded the outcomes that have been of benefit. Has there been an instance where it hasn't necessarily gone your way, but then it has eventually?
It because the thing is about it is what I can see is the end. I can see being in the building, if that makes sense. And although that was like that was quite a straightforward process, like it just worked, and I was quite fortunate about that. But there's been other instances where I see things, and what I haven't seen is the journey in between. And sometimes it's rocky and hard. You know, I've had some big losses. We had a big loss last year, and it combated this year with a good win. You know, but you have to roll with the punches. You have to have the ups. You have to have the downs. I've always been a strong believer of managing the down. With our engineering company, it's project based. So your projects are on, and then there's no projects. So it's not about managing when you're up, when you've got all this work. It's managing what happens when we don't have all the work.
It's like seasonal, eh?
It can be seasonal. But we had a 3-year run where we were back to back, like just constant projects. And then we got hammered on a project where you know, there was just some we just lost a whole lot of money on it, and rightly or wrongly to the customer or to us, what it came down with is just a simple clause in the contract. And like when I say lost, like I mean hundreds of thousands, big loss. And you've got two options in that situation. You lie down, or you just get up and carry on. And that's what we did. And after a year, it worked out. So you can't foresee that. But at the end of the day, like, yep, 100%, there has been lots of times when things don't work out, you know.
Wow.
Lots of things you can't control.
I love that.
That's the hard thing, eh?
That's what it does come down to, is just sometimes we get so caught up in the things that we can't control. When things are going bad, all you can see is like everything that's going bad.
Yeah.
There's no room for any kind of sunny sunrise, you know, the following day. So for you to just be in that space of knowing what it's like to manifest and to actually create something that you like, but to also be on the opposing end of just suffering major losses.
Yeah.
But then coming with that perspective of like, you can't have good without the bad.
Yeah.
But within that, you know how to manage the bad while you still continue to strive for what you feel is going to give you that sense of, I guess, success. And we were talking just a bit earlier, bro, about our measure of success or our measure of wealth. And so do you want to talk to us about, you know, what your friend said to you?
Yeah. So it was like it really made me think when he said, you know, that measure of wealth and how we measure wealth. And that your top 10% of the people in the world, the opposite way around, that you know, 90% of the people in the world, they can't go to the supermarket and just buy whatever they want, you know. And I really like it. Kind of made me think about the fact that like I don't consider myself like. Everyone's perception of wealth is different, right? And people probably look at me and think that I've got all of this money, and like. The thing is about it is I'm not some millionaire, you know, super rich with all these launches and cars and all of that kind of stuff. But I do class myself as wealthy on this one real simple thing, is that I can go to the supermarket and I can just buy whatever I want. I don't have a budget. I'm not constrained by what money that I have in my bank account. However, like I can't just go and buy a boat.
Yeah.
I can't just go and buy a brand new car. I can't just go and, you know, so I believe my measure of wealth is that you can go to the supermarket and you can just go grocery shopping, you know, and you don't have $100 and that's all you've got. And whatever you buy has to be less than that.
Yeah.
I truly believe that I consider myself wealthy in the fact that I can just do that.
It's almost like our basic needs. When our basic needs are covered and there's no sort of stress around the price tag, then there's an element there of wealth that is being fulfilled. And obviously then we can go into the different layers of you know, what kind of wealth do we want to have in terms of the lifestyle that we can see for ourselves. And you know, for me, it's being in a position, and this is why I enjoy business, this is why I enjoy opportunities, is because there's the sense of freedom.
Yep.
You know, there's these different things that you can enjoy in life, such as going for a holiday, such as, you know, if you do feel like a new vehicle, it's there, and it's not to boast, but it's to enjoy the fullness of life in some way. And it's just having options. It's just having freedoms. It's just having that feeling state. But then in the same sentence, it's also being aware of where you are and not necessarily looking at what you don't got all the time. You know, but it's having that full perspective of being like, actually, I know the destination or the path that I want to be on, but I'm not going to rob myself of all the good that I have right now. You know, so it's all perspective.
It is perspective. And honestly, like, you know, all of the stuff that I'm doing at the moment is for one purpose, is that I want to be in a position where I can spend time with my family. And that's the most important thing to me right now is our family. So like, you know, everything ramping up in terms of my ambition for growth and like all of this stuff, a lot of people might see it as being like just wanting more money and wanting things, but I want the one thing that money can't buy me, which is time. So we had a hard time last year. Like we lost our daughter, and when we talk about what's the worst that can happen, I can tell you what the worst thing that can happen is that you lose one of your kids. That is like hands down. So for me, again, I've got two options. You can lie down, or you can get up and you can fight. And that's what I've done. And it's given me a way bigger like appreciation for my family. Would I have liked to not go through that? Yes. Hands down, I would prefer to have not had to go through that. But I had to take a lesson from it, and I had to go, well, what am I doing? I'm away all the time. I travel for business. We're in Australia all the time. I spent probably 6 months of last year in Australia, back and forward. I can't plan anything any more than 3 days in advance because I never know when I'm going to be away. All of that kind of thing. And like, that's the toll that it takes in trying to achieve something. So for me, what I'm trying to do is just get that time with our family. And it took a horrible loss for me to have to learn that lesson. But I'm here now, and that lesson's learnt, and I hopefully never have to learn that lesson ever again.
Wow.
But I look at it and I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? And the worst that can happen is that. So if I lose something on this job, or if I lose something on this investment that I'm looking at, it'll never add up to that, never ever. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Wow, it sort of helps
time.
Sort of helps me get a gauge of, you know, the amount of energy that I've sort of felt around you, you know, since we've sort of been hanging out over the last like month or two. I can just see this great sense of passion and ambition for life, and I guess to create and just to express yourself in these certain ways and to scale so that you can have these meaningful moments like with your family. And so, you know, that's powerful for you to step into that space, bro, to bring that out for this kaupapa, brother. And, you know, when you think about, you know, everything that you have gone through, and you think about the people that you're around, how much of an impact is that in terms of the journey that you're on, bro?
Oh, it's been quite highly pivotal in probably my level of ambition, mainly just because I think, like, you know, I've got very ambitious and very, I wouldn't say risk-taking, but like the people who, like my friends and all of that, you know, the ones, the Rio and them who are all involved with all of this kind of stuff, like those guys are like, man, I look at it as being awesome. My wife is like, man, every time you hang out with them, like there's always something else, you know. And but that's a good thing, because what it's done for me is it's given me, everything we're doing feels good. You know, I do engineering because I'm really good at it. You know, we've got international customers that literally get us to go into their own country to do their work. Like, I'm good at what I do. But it doesn't necessarily, I love creating in that space, but it's not the same as this, where you're creating and you're creating with people.
Co-creating.
Yeah, like that's a different level of just fulfillment, like feeling good in your stomach. And I love it. It's helping me get up. It's helping me enjoy my job. And we spoke about this earlier, about the fact that, you know, when you calculate out the amount of time that you're at work and the amount of time that you have with your family in a day, going back to the whole time thing, you spend more time at work than you do awake with your family on a daily basis. So if you can't feel good when you're with what you're doing, you're literally, half your life sucks, you know? So this has just been it's been a big contrast in the last year or so, because I haven't had anything to compare it with. I've been in the industry for it'll be 20 years this year. I started when I was 15.
Wow.
You know? And I still consider myself young. I'm older than some, but I'm not that old, you know?
Yeah.
And but nearly 20 years in an industry is a long time for anybody, and that's that'll be 2/3 of my life that I've been in engineering. And I do love it. I enjoy it. I love, you know, I create in a way, but I haven't had anything to contrast it against. And then now working with Rio and working with Lils and Kiri and all these other people, and, you know, yourself, you know, like I never would have foreseen that I'd even be in these environments where, sometimes where what you have to say actually even matters. Like,
Yeah, sure.
So that's making me feel real good. And so 50% of my life is awesome.
Wow.
And then I get to also be at home with my family, which is also awesome. So it's like life is just, it's good.
It's sort of like summarized in that way.
Yeah.
When you think about where you are spending the majority of your time.
Yeah.
And just contemplating that question, like, am I happy here?
Yeah.
And there's two ways to look at it. You could be like, well, no, I'm not. But then how are you viewing what it is that you're doing?
Yeah.
Like, are you dragging your ass into mahi and to a job that you just don't really like?
Yeah.
Or if you were to apply a different energy to that same mahi, you might be feeling differently as well. So again, it just comes down to that perspective. But
it comes down to that opportunity as well, eh?
Right.
Because I think even in a bad situation, there's opportunity. There's
I believe so
opportunity
too.
everywhere. You've got it, like, your eyes have to be open,
It's just having belief that opportunities are there.
Yeah.
Because if you're open to opportunities, you will see them, you will notice them. Another thing that really gave me a significant shift in my own personal journey is like, it's one thing to be open to opportunities, but then it's another thing to completely create them. I love the whole journey of like creating opportunities. It's like, all right, what kind of assets do I have in terms of my skills? What can I bring to the table? There's this here. What can I create from this?
Yeah.
And like we're on one right now,
Yeah.
which is like the podcast. We have things within our own capacity that can create something, but it just takes a little bit of life experience.
Yeah.
It takes reflecting on certain things to give us that belief that, hey, we can do it.
Yeah. No, I agree. And like you say, with that creating opportunity, that can honestly be anywhere. It doesn't, like, I've created opportunities in some random places, at airports, at coffee places, like nothing to do with work. You meet someone and like everyone's a potential customer.
100%.
You know what I mean?
Bro.
Like, and that's how I look. You look at somebody and it's not like I go and talk to people like
For that
they could
reason.
be a customer, but you get talking. It's general chit chat. Hey, how's it going? What do you do? Oh, I do this. Da 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 da. And you're like, oh, they work for that. And it's just eyes open. Just keep your eyes open and you'll see an opportunity. But if your eyes are closed, you just won't see opportunity.
That's right, bro. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And for you being in the game for 20 years, bro, been doing it since you're 15, you're now in a space that is being like quite established. Then when was your window of opportunity that you saw like, hey, I can move from being an employee to actually running my own thing? Like, where was the time for you?
Yeah, I think that was around, I believe it was about 5 years before I started my company. And kind of long story short, we went through a process where like I was working for this company. I worked there for about 13 years all up. And I was probably about 8-9 years in. And my good friend was one of the directors. And at that time, what we were looking towards is that, we would, myself and my friend who was already a half owner would continue the company. And some things happened and he ended up leaving and selling and whatnot, and I stayed at the company, and we started getting put on these jobs, and I started to get to run these jobs, and I was probably I would have been in like my early 20s, maybe 23 or something like that. And I remember running them, and I was just doing so much for the company, and with my focus of like one day this is going to work out. I didn't know what for. And I remember I was in Australia, and it must have been around 2013, and I thought to myself, I reckon I could buy this company. Like, I know the old fella's wanting to sell, and I think I was like, I reckon I could. So I talked to my wife about it, and she was like, because she's very risk adverse, which probably sucks being married to me.
And you probably just fill her up with so much anxiety, bro. Like, what's he gonna say to me now?
Yeah. Sometimes, and hopefully she'll watch this one time. Sometimes I don't tell her. She finds out after it's been done, and she growls me about it. But it hasn't worked out badly for us yet. And I think it's more because she's my best friend. She's my everything, and sometimes I'm scared that because of her risk adversity that she might say what I don't want to hear.
Yeah.
But most of the time it's what I need to hear.
100.
But we spoke about it, and I think it was around that 2013 where it just I thought to myself, like, I can do this. I reckon I could buy this. So we expressed interest to buy the company, and it took a while. It was a bit of a process, and in the end we, like I was saying before, is there just came that time when I had to put my big boy pants on, and man, we had to lean our mortgage against the finance to be able to purchase this business, and we had the money and everything, but the old boss, basically just the deal fell away. So again, I was faced with two options. I either carry on working as an employee, or I use the money that I already had as a facility to start my own thing. So I did. And man, she's been an interesting ride.
It's like when one door closes, you just had another one open, eh?
Yeah, it's an interesting feeling. Like I liken it to when you go from being an employee to being self-employed, stepping out into the wilderness. Like, I honestly felt at that time, it was like you step forward and everybody's just like behind you.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, actually my boy, we found out that my wife was pregnant 3 days after we started DMI.
Whoa.
So if you're looking for incentives, it's a big one to make it work. And basically we just went hard. And I had the support from my wife. It's hard to support something that is so volatile and so at that time you go from a regular income to I just didn't pay myself for the first month or two, and then I gave myself a little bit of a salary, and then you build up from there, and start building employees, and then start buying plant and equipment and all that kind of stuff. So right. But those key moments of just when things happen, and it's reflecting, like we were talking about, it's interesting.
It's such a buzzy thing to think about, your journey and just how things have come to be, even though you've been in the industry for that long, and you sort of were in it for 13 years until you started to see an opportunity for yourself. And then going through that whole experience, and now being in this space now, was there a difference that you realized when, one, there's you being self-employed, and there's now a big jump from being self-employed to actually having a company?
Yeah.
Because it's different, eh?
You
can be self-employed, but then you have a business, but there's a difference between being self-employed and just worrying about yourself to then having employees and scaling it to actually having a company.
Yeah. Oh, it's a huge difference, and it's the pressure, because maybe I'm a little bit different than other businessmen, but I'm very I don't take lightly the fact that I've got somebody's livelihood in my hands, and the thing is about it is you have to, I get paid last. So if there was no money, my employees will always get paid. And there's been instances where our cash flow just gets completely cocked up. It happens all the time because customers don't pay, or you miss, the cycles just work funny, and ultimately that comes down to my bad forecasting if that happens. But in that case, you can't just be like, oh, sorry guys, I can't pay you this week. You know what I mean? Like, I literally have to just get money out of my bank account, put it into the company so that our wages can go out. And I don't know, there's a lot of businessmen and women that would probably take that kind of, have that kind of feeling about their commitment that they have to their staff. But it's a lot of pressure because you've committed these people to families, that you've committed their families and their livelihoods to the fact that I'm going to give you the hours that I say in my contract, and at that rate, and I'm going to give you all of this stuff, and you have to deliver that. And that was a big step. The other step is when I realised the difference between myself being just. I used to, when I started the company, I looked at myself as being a technician that was just doing something for themselves, like a self-employed contractor. I was just like, I never classed myself as a businessman. I used to always say it. I was like, well, technically I am a businessman because I have a business, but that wasn't the reason why I started DMI.
You were in the business, not on the business, right?
Yeah. I started the business because everything I'm doing for this company, I was doing for another person. So I was like, well, I'm going to do it for myself.
Yeah.
That was,
you are that other person now.
Yeah. And I never looked at myself as being a businessman. I never classed myself as that or being a businessman. But in the last, I'd say the last year, maybe just over a year, I've actually gone, I like being a businessman. I enjoy it. And it's like you said in the beginning about the game. It does become a little bit of a game. You start looking at things differently. Opportunities come in other places and all that kind of thing. So, but that's a big step, is when you actually go from being a self-employed contractor to now I am a company.
Operating a company.
And you start having a look at your organisational charts, and you start learning about your 10 hats of business, and actually starting to break it down, which what we're really focusing on now with my engineering company is organisational structure, so that's
the systems are in place. The
systems are there, the foundation has to be strong, and basically I'm looking for growth. So, you've got to have that structure in place. You've got to have that foundation strong. And don't get me wrong, we've grown before, and then it's come back down. And it's happened a couple of times. It's gone up, and then I've gone, oh, that didn't work, and it goes down. And then you build on a different foundation, and then it gets big again, and then it gets small.
I like that whole chat because it reminds me of something my mentor said to me. His name's Marcus Brown, and just an amazing speaker, an amazing man. And he sort of shared with me around growth and how our foundation is just so important. Because if you have a strong foundation, right, and you have your whole big foundation, it supports the growth that you have.
Mm-hmm.
But the downfall is sometimes our growth exceeds our foundation, and that's when we sort of have those moments where we plummet, or we sort of retract, or our growth seems to, in this season anyway, go in the opposite direction. And so I think it's so important, just to have those foundational things just in place to support the growth, and just to support the ambition of growth that you and I suppose every other businessman has. Yeah.
Oh, hands down. It's key. And like I say, is nothing majors happen, but it happens. You get to a point of time, and it's not until everything's big and heavy that it kind of falls apart. Travel for us is a big one. As an example, travel. We do so much travel, and it eats people up. It's real hard on my guys, and it's hard to, at that base foundation level, and then in this instance is on the contract, when the guys are signing their contract, to say, well, this is what you get for traveling. It's really hard to get that right.
Yeah, sure.
And you don't know until they've been away for 4 months straight.
You're in it. Yeah.
And they're complaining, and it's and they're right to complain. And I'm glad that they complain to me, and they tell me, they're like, man, this is hard, and da-da-da. And I'm like, I can't do anything because we can't charge for it, or da-da-da-da-da. So, at each instance, it's usually travel that people have been leaving for, because, we try to create a real nice environment and culture, and we're like family. You're away for 6 months, you're literally living at the same places as these people, and trying to get that right
Yeah.
on a piece of paper, which is the foundation, is real hard.
Yeah.
It's real hard.
And I suppose even just looking at your own experience, you know, your own life experience, and you understanding how important time is.
Yeah.
And then just trying to have that balance of like, yeah, you want your guys to be home, to be with their families, and then you're also thinking about, you know, the journey of having a company and people want employment. So, you know, it's like how you said, it's their balance. Like, you know how important time is. And then you also know how important like having like this business running and employment for other people. So, you know, I can definitely feel into, you know, what it is that you're sharing, Bo. But, you know, I just do want to pass it over to you, brother, if you know, had any like last words that you would like to bless us with in terms of, you know, this whole journey that you've been on, or for something for the listeners, brother.
Yeah. My biggest thing would be is it's not being afraid to have a go. The person who will back you the best will be yourself. You know, you can have the best support crew, but if you can't back yourself, then it's near impossible. So, yeah, I think getting into business and stuff like that, you pretty much, the worst thing you can do is nothing. You know, that's probably my thing. The worst thing you could do with anything is nothing. Like if you've got an idea, you've got to do something. Do something about it. That's probably, yeah, I think that's me. That's that.
Wow, bro, that's like resonating deeply with me, you know. There's that whole thing around, you know, just backing yourself. And it's one thing to want something, but if you're not doing anything to contribute to it, you just stay in that same cycle, and then the opposite happens. You beat yourself up because you're not doing the thing.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're inspired, or when you feel like that moment is coming for you to take action, just leap. You know, so, and I think your story, bro, is just something that encapsulates all of that, brother. So just want to say thank you, brother Tim, for coming through. And whanau, I know you got something from this episode, so let us know in the comments. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for coming on, brother.
Thank you.
Aotearoa.
Gee.
Choice.